Hey folks, Jason Dukes here. So I've just built a new jig. I've got a frame. I just got back from the sandblaster. We're building a new crate Racin USA street stock, starting now. This first car I'm building is a 112-inch wheelbase car. So this is a 1973 Pontiac Le Mans. That falls into a class of frame that is the 73 to 77 mid-size GM known as the A-body. I've already set this frame up on the car, and as you can see, it has been sandblasted. The frame has been mounted with the rake already in it. I've put approximately 2 inches of rake into this chassis, nose down, which roughly equates to 2 degrees when you measure it at the frame rail. And I'll show you some of the work that we've already gotten started on. So as you can see here, I've mounted the frame using some 2x2 square steel. Now I initially just clamped this 2-inch square steel across the 2 rails, and then I've started spot welding them up. I used uprights tack welded, and the lengths of those uprights were just trimmed so that I created a rake on the car of 2 inches. And so I trimmed them down until I roughly got to 8.5 inches where that lower control arm bolt is down to the jig. We've already got the main work for the floor itself done. On the passenger side, this is 1.5 inch HREW 095. I feel like that this is an important bar to put into the car because the rail itself can become bent or damaged during a wreck and could be taken off and repaired and put back in place without the car itself having any problems in the squareness or the geometry of it, because the inside rail would maintain that. Using 1.5 inch 14 gauge steel for the driver's side floor, and it's 1.25 inch bars creating a triangulation from the passenger side to it. There's also a doubling where the bars connect with each other. One important feature for how this frame has been done for the floor is that I trimmed these corners away and tied this all the way through to the outside of the frame. And once we get to the point where we're starting to get completed, we'll actually take and put these corners back in place. This is a safety feature. There's no advantage to it other than to prevent any tear out from where our new construction is tying to the old chassis. So here in the rear, we also did the same thing. We tied these corners in. We've got a piece of 2x2 right here that's going all the way across. And that's creating a support for our lower control arms, tying that together. But also our cockpit's going to tie into it, and our roll cage as well. So this is a safety thing. And so we tied it in all the way to the outside on both sides. And again, we'll trim the cap back when it's over and put this back in place. So this cap will also be trimmed around our roll cage where it comes up out of the floor that'll be tied to this 2x2 as well. When this is over, we'll trim the center back for the drive shaft to come through and cap these ends off. So some of the work we've already gotten completed. The Crate Racin USA Street Stock class has no rules for the upper control arms. And since they don't, one of the things we've already done is we've taken both the mounts off already that were originally here. So we've cut those off smooth, peeled all the welds away. Another thing that we've done is taken this outside of this spring pocket away. We'll have remote mounted shocks, and the shock will actually come in contact where it's going to be with where this frame originally was right here. So this frame was on here like this, and so we took and snapped a chalk line across here, shaved that away, and put in a plate. Now this plate right here would be where the spring is going to be, and because of that, once we put the jack in place that will set the height of the spring, we'll figure out exactly how much clearance we'll need, and we'll trim this back on both sides. As you can see here, we've already clearanced for the fuel pump. If a class allows you to set the engine back to where the #1 spark plug is in line with the upper ball joints, then you will have to relieve the frame here. Typically, you can find this seam line right across here and come back 2 inches and then up, and it'll give you plenty of room for an engine setback like that. This is for dirt, where in an asphalt situation, they may set the engine in a different height, and that may require a different amount of clearance. There's quite a bit of work left to be done with the welds themselves. So we're grinding away the welds and then replacing them in segments, allowing the frame to cool. You can see here where that I'm stitching. And then also here you can see where that I'm stitching in new welding, tying this all together. Some of the places are significantly questionable, as you can see here. But yeah, we're just filling in everything and then just grinding everything smooth in this process. This class that we're building this car for, we're allowed to take everything rear of the midpoint of the rear end off. And so before I sent it to the sandblaster, I already took a torch and just roughed it off. We'll be cutting this back level after the rear end has been mounted to the car and put plates on, and then we'll have a rear hoop assembly that will actually bolt to the frame at this point. Make it easier for crash repair. That's an overview of where we're at getting started. I'm really excited about this. As I said, it is my first coil car, and I'm speaking of the rear suspension when I say coil car. This is a GMW rear suspension, but this is the first one that I've ever built. I've built many Camaros. I'm very comfortable with Camaros. I have a Camaro sitting over here that I still race, but I am wanting to get into this coil suspension. I do see that the coil suspension cars seem to have an advantage on big, smooth, dry slick track. Next up, we'll be working on the front end. We'll be welding up all of the seam areas, and then we'll also be working on the lower control arms. I appreciate any input that you can leave me in the comments below, and like and subscribe. Thank y'all.